Good afternoon. Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Here. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblyman Gray. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblywoman Newby. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblyman Orentlicker. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Chair Peters.
And I am here, and thank you so much. Will you please mark Assemblyman Gray and Assemblyman Hafen present when they arrive? All right, so we have 3 bill hearings today, but also we have the introduction of 2 committee bills to move this morning. I'm going to take the committee bill introductions first so we can get those downstairs. ASAP. The first committee BDR introduction is BDR 38328. Which makes revisions relating to Medicaid. I just want to remind folks that voting on the introduction of these bills does not connect you at all to these bills. We have to just move them to the floor so that they can come back to committee for vetting. So moved. Second. Thank you so much. I have a motion to introduce BDR 328 from Assemblyman Wynn and a second from Assemblywoman Taylor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next BDR is BDR 38323. This establishes provisions related to commercially sexually exploited children, and this is an interim Health and Human Services Committee bill. Do I have a motion for introduction? Thank you so much. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Taylor and a second from Assemblyman Wynn. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. So I am reminded to go over some housekeeping items. We go over these pretty much every time, but it helps remind me as well to make sure that my devices are muted before we begin so we are not interrupting our speakers as they are presenting. Secondly, members may provide public testimony in a variety of ways, all of which are listed on the agenda. You may also submit public comment in writing, either in addition to testifying or in lieu thereof. Written public comment may be submitted before, during, or up to 24 hours after meeting's adjournment. If you wish to testify in person, please sign in at the table by the door and leave a business card so we have an accurate name for the record. Agenda items may be taken in a different order than listed. 2 or more agenda items may be combined for consideration. An item may be removed from this agenda or discussed, or discussion of an item on this agenda may be delayed at any time. To ensure an orderly flow of discussion, all comments, questions, and responses must go through me unless I give you other instructions, please. Also, committee members must be recognized by me before you may speak. Additionally, I ask our presenters on Zoom video call to leave your cameras off and microphones muted until it is your turn to present, or if I direct questions to you. When testifying in person, please turn on the microphone to speak and off to listen, otherwise we get a nasty reverb. With that, we will move on to our agenda. I'm going to quickly start moving into these bills because we have 3 on the agenda, and I want to make sure that we respect people's time today. We've allocated equal time to testimony and support, opposition, and neutral after each bill presentation. To be specific, each person providing testimony is allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Staff will be timing each speaker to ensure everyone is given a fair opportunity to speak. A reminder on providing testimony per Assembly Standing Rule 54, a person must state for the record whether they support, oppose, or are neutral on a measure before the committee. Some examples are: support consists of approval of the measure as written or as written along with proposed amendments that have been approved by the sponsor of the measure. Opposition consists of not supporting the measure as written or as revised by an amendment that has not been approved by the sponsor of the measure. And a neutral position on a measure is one in which a person offers particular insight on the measure but expresses no position on the measure. We will go ahead and open the hearing for Assembly Bill 45, today presented by our wonderful State Treasurer et al. Please go ahead and begin when you're ready, and remember to state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Peters and members of the Health and Human Services Committee. For the record, I'm Zach Conine, and while I'm not your wonderful State Treasurer, he was unavailable, so you get me. It's great to be here to present Assembly Bill 45. The Treasurer's primary role is serving as the state's Chief Investment Officer. Over the last 4 years, our office has focused on ways we can work to invest in programs and services that increase the quality of life for working families across Nevada. In 2019, my office worked with then Speaker Jason Frierson and Assemblyman Watts to pass Assembly Bill 383, which established Nevada's first ever student loan ombudsman. Over the last 3 years, our student loan ombudsman has worked tirelessly to help borrowers understand their rights, while also working to give them access to public sector loan forgiveness programs. During the pandemic, the work of our ombudsman became even more important, as many borrowers struggled to understand various changes to the student loans that came about as a result of the federal freeze on student loan payments. As we continued with this work, we recognized that student loan debt is one of the largest issues facing Nevadans, and it only became clear that we needed to do something as the pandemic kept going. When our congressional delegation stepped up to provide much-needed aid to the state of Nevada, we found ourselves with $6.7 billion in funds to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Of this, $2.7 billion from the American Rescue Plan was more flexible and could be used for a number of new programs to help us recover stronger from the pandemic. To better understand how those dollars could be invested in building a better state for all of our residents going forward, former Governor Sisolak and I kicked off the largest constituent engagement effort in state history through the Nevada Recovers Listening Tour. The tour consisted of 123 community events over 82 days, sure felt longer, where we listened directly to members of the community and worked to find solutions to improve quality of life. The bill before you today is a direct result of conversations we had in almost every single community on this listening tour. From rural communities to tribal reservations and our urban neighborhoods, we heard consistently about the challenges that people faced with not being able to find a qualified healthcare provider near them. From doctors to dentists to women's healthcare providers, people told us over and over again that we needed to find more ways to incentivize healthcare professionals to come and practice in some of our most underserved communities. Assembly Bill 45 seeks to address this problem by incentivizing new healthcare professionals who have graduated from a Nevada institution with a sizable amount of student loan debt, with student loan repayment funds in exchange for committing to practice in a community greatly in need of their services. I want to thank all of the medical professionals and stakeholders who have helped strengthen this bill over the last few months, including the UNR and UNLV medical schools, the Nevada Dental Association, and organizations like Planned Parenthood. I'm hopeful this bill can become an important piece of the puzzle to solving provider shortages in communities across our state. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to walk through the various sections of the bill.
Thank you for offering. I am interested in your proposed amendment, so if we could walk through the bill with the amendment, that would be great.
Perfect, we will do that. The amendment is posted on Nellis in case anyone's looking for it, and we'll work through that. Sections 2 through 5 are definitional sections. Section 6 of the bill establishes the Student Loan Repayment for Providers of Healthcare in Underserved Communities program in the State Treasurer's Office. The goal of the program is to provide up to $120,000 in student loan payments to healthcare providers who commit to practicing in an underserved community in Nevada. Section 6 also states that the Treasurer should prioritize applications under this program for certain providers of primary care and providers who commit to serving patients covered by Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP. Section 7 of the bill establishes the eligibility criteria for this program. In order to be eligible to receive student loan repayment funds, a healthcare professional would first need to fall into one of the provider types listed in Section 2 of the amendment. We've worked with a number of stakeholders to make sure this list is intentionally broad, so we have the flexibility to cover a wide variety of potential providers. Then a provider would need to meet the following criteria. 1, be a current Nevada resident. Graduate on or after April 30th of 2023 from an institution within the Nevada system of higher education or another accredited institution of higher education in Nevada with a degree in a health-related field, for instance, Toro University. Be actively licensed or certified to practice in Nevada. Commit to at least 5 years of clinical practice in an underserved community. In this bill, we are defining underserved communities to include qualified census tracts, in an area with a high social vulnerability according to the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index, in a community with limited English language proficiency, on tribal lands, or in a community where tribal members commonly reside, or in a community that has been subject to historical instances of redlining, segregation, or other discriminatory practices. Section 8 requires a provider of healthcare who meets the qualifications set forth in the previous section to apply directly to the state treasurer's office in order to be considered for student loan repayment funding. Additionally, in Section 8, the treasurer is given regulatory authority to establish the procedures and standards necessary to administer the program. As part of these regulations, the treasurer is required to establish a sliding scale for determining the total amount of loan repayment a provider is eligible to receive under the program. This scale would take into account someone's specialization, degree type, and average loan burden for the particular field into account while establishing the amount of repayment. Section 9 of the bill provides the treasurer with the ability to employ necessary staff to administer the program. Additionally, Section 9 requires the treasurer's office to post information on our website about the program along with various requirements and how to apply. Section 10 creates the account for student loan repayment for providers of healthcare in underserved communities. Funds in this account are designated only to be used for providing student loan repayment to providers and for program administration costs. Section 11 of the bill adds an additional statutory provision requiring the student loan ombudsman in the Nevada Treasurer's Office to assist borrowers who are pursuing degrees in a health-related field to become aware of, qualify for, and apply for the program. Section 12 creates a permanent funding mechanism for this program, which allows us to administer the program without having to come back to the legislature every 2 years for continued funding. This section allows for $5 million to be transferred from the Abandoned Property Trust account to support this program, much in the way we already do to help fund the Governor Gwynn Millennium Scholarship and the Grants Matching account on an ongoing basis. I think this funding mechanism is incredibly important because it will allow providers who participate in the program to know that continued funding will be available for them as they work their way through school. In conclusion, student loan repayment is one of the many things that we need to do in order to recruit and train high-quality healthcare professionals in communities across our state. Through this program, coupled with increased funding for residency programs and other innovative solutions, I'm hopeful we can start to move the needle and increase healthcare for all Nevada residents. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair, to present Assembly Bill 45. Happy to answer any questions this committee may have.
Thank you so much. We have several questions. I'm going to just go ahead and dive right in. Assemblywoman Newby, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for your presentation of the bill. How would this program then work with the federal government service loan repayment program, where if you work for a government or nonprofit for 10 years, then your loans are forgiven?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, our intention is for them to be complementary, right? And so with the federal loan program, often you have to work 10 years in a certain community. And what we found, at least through the first group of people going through this program, it's one of the reasons why the student loan ombudsperson was created originally, the rules and regulations around that program are incredibly restrictive. And we find that most people who apply to it have their applications denied. In the first round of applications, it was more than 99% of applications were denied. So what we wanted to create was a focused way for some individuals who maybe would qualify for that down the road, but we would really be able to use them for 5 years or 4 years before they start qualifying for that program. So we think of it kind of as a complementary stopgap. That makes sense. I'm sorry, Chair, I should have gone through your, my apologies.
Thank you so much for recognizing that, but you're welcome to go directly to the assembly person. Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Didn't expect you to get to me that quick. I actually have several questions. In the interest of time, though, just choose the one you want to answer. The others, I'd like to just get on the record, if that's okay. So my biggest question, I'm from a rural community. It doesn't look like by these regulations we're going to qualify in any way, and we've got a dearth of healthcare providers. So I want to know why this isn't, why this bill isn't inclusive. Why isn't it looking at income, in communities? It's only looking at protected classes. I mean, you've got everything here that's protected from gender identity to whatever. But anyways, that's the first question. Second one is we're trying to attract doctors, right? I mean, that's what we need in Nevada. Why does it only have to be Nevada, Nevada trained physicians? What if, would we tell a Harvard doctor, no, you can't come here and practice in a community that needs you and they need to repay their loan? I think that's kind of, cutting off our nose to spite our face. And then third one is, aren't these duplicative of federal programs like with Indian Health Services and the Public public health service, where they have commission core, where they go out and they get their education funded through those programs. And then finally, it's, and this is just a little confusion on my part, someplace you talk about doctors, primary care providers, and then in another spot, it mentions health-related field. So is this going to be available to anybody in a health-related field? Healthcare managers, if they've got a degree in healthcare management or healthcare administration, dietitians, physical therapy assistants? Where do we draw the line, I guess, is where I want to go. And with that, Mr. Conine, I'll leave it to you to answer one of those questions. Thank you.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, thanks for the question. I'm going to go in reverse order. The intention is to bring healthcare providers, right? So whether they are dentists or doctors or registered nurses or mental health professionals or psychiatrists, want to be as broad as possible. And specifically getting to your first question, because this was designed as we traveled through our rural communities, right? As we were in West Wendover, as Assemblyman Hafen and I were in Pahrump, as we talked to these communities and realized the necessary piece of this. And so the bill language is intended to, and we believe it does, focus on qualified census tracts, which would bring in a vast majority of our rural communities, right? And also communities that are currently underserved by medical professionals, which would bring in basically everyone else. So our intention here, and we've had this question a couple of times, so I'll kind of brief into it. We are going to, and we are intending to prioritize communities where there is no health professional prior to communities where the time to wait for a health professional is too long. We think both are necessary. And that gets into the third question, which is duplicative. And I would say, yes, there are certainly other programs that do this kind of work, but if they worked, we would have health professionals in every town, and we don't. We need to do more, and this is an opportunity for us to fill some of that gap. And your last question was why Nevada providers first. Well, Nevada bred doctors first, excuse me, or only. Well, as I think we know, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time encouraging folks to come either go to med school here or stay here for medical school, whether in the north or in the south or at Roseman or at Toro and whatever else. We want to keep the doctors that we are paying for with all these other programs in our state. And right now the state is not competitive when it comes to the opportunities that could be available in another state. And certainly our rural communities and our underserved inner core communities are not competitive when it comes to the wages that are able to be provided. And so the goal here is to make sure that the individuals that we've already paid for through scholarships, through the Governor Gwen Millennium Scholarship, through whatever has kept them in Nevada all this way, or brought them here in the first place, we want to make sure we keep those doctors. That's the why. Granted, we could offer it to every doctor. At some point, the dollars and cents don't work, right? And we're trying to be a little bit fiscally responsible, but I appreciate the comment. We'd love to get doctors from Harvard, though it is a secondary tier school, in my opinion, but that's just a Zach thing. Thank you.
Having family members who taught at the University of Nevada who can appreciate the sentiment, medical school. I have several other questions, so we're going to move on. Assemblywoman Gorlow, I have you next.
Thank you so much. And actually, my colleague just asked, I was also wondering about why we weren't expanding this to professions or people who are going out of state and help encourage them to come back. My comment more of, we know that when we educate people locally, they tend to stay locally. So I would be interested in seeing, or at least hearing what the conversations were about expanding maybe to our neighboring states and bringing those individuals into Nevada to help fill some of the space. But thank you.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I believe our Chief Policy Deputy, Eric Jimenez, has something to add.
Thank you for the question. Assemblywoman Eric Jimenez with the Treasurer's Office. For the record, we had a lot of conversations about this particular topic. I think what we landed on, just like the Treasurer had stated earlier, is that we've already invested money in these folks through residency programs. I know there's a great deal of work that's going to get done this session on that, and existing financial aid that we're providing folks. We wanted to make sure that this program can get off the ground and running and show success before we come to you for a larger dollar figure. Our hope is that the Public Health Service Corps, which has got another bill, gets more funding for their program. We get funding for this program, but at some point we're going to run out of funding. And then I think it's a conversation for how can we expand, or are there specific provider types that we're trying to get from Utah and Idaho and other states. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for that response. Assemblyman Nguyen, I have you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you, Mr. Treasurer, for your awesome presentation as always. Looking at one of the criteria on Section 7, you mentioned the on number 4C that the a community in which at least 20% of the household were not proficient in English language. Where did that 20% come from? And a follow-up to that is that if we are able to obtain providers who may speak those languages that we need, and they don't fall through the Nevada requirement of being trained in a Nevada institution, but maybe perhaps they do their residency here, would there be exception to that?
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman Eric Jimenez. For the record, I'll take the first part, and I think we can have a conversation on the second part. One, this language came largely from work that we have done through the State Infrastructure Bank, so you wouldn't have no reason to know what that is in this committee, but broadly, it has a goal of locating 40% of projects in these types of geographic communities. One of the things that we have based that off of is the federal government's Biden-Harris Justice 40 initiative. So a lot of this language is coming from standards that we are hearing from the federal government already. That's part one. I think on part two, you bring up an incredible point, particularly when it comes to some of our AAPI community. I think we'd love to continue to have conversations about if a doctor does speak a particular language for a community, how we can make them a part of this program. So I think we'd be happy to have those conversations.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you for the answer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I have Assemblyman Koenig next.
Hello. So my question has to do with my own experience as an optometrist. I mean, I feel an optometry is pretty much a gateway. We're a gatekeeper profession. I treat a lot of disease, but I refer a lot more disease. 3 or 4 years ago, I was looking for an associate. It took me 2.5 years to find someone to come and work for me. My clinic, I have 3 rural clinics, and all of them are full. In fact, my one now in Fallon has about a 2-month wait because I'm here not seeing patients. And there's not an optometry school in Nevada. So if you're only reimbursing doctors who attend school in Nevada, you've completely eliminated optometrists from the equation. We need more optometrists, especially in the rurals. I'm not quite sure in the big cities if there's enough, but in the rurals there is not. So to eliminate only people who go to school here in this state when that program isn't even offered in this state, I don't think is fair, and it's not helping my rural constituents. So any ideas or thoughts on including maybe some of these professions that don't have schools in the state?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, what an exceptional point. Totally agree. I think to the extent that, and we can figure out the right way to do this, but to the extent that a program doesn't exist within the state of Nevada, but the providers need to, I think that would be a wonderful exception to the conversation we were having earlier about wanting to make sure we are able to incent and retain the Nevadans that we've paid to go to school.
Thank you.
I think that is a great point and working opportunity. I look forward to seeing where that goes. Assemblyman Hafen, I have you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Treasurer, for being here. I carried a very similar bill in 2019, and you're right, we did hear about this a lot during the listening tours. I do have some concerns on some of the language, and I'm hoping that we can sit down after this and try to make this something that can work. But one of my concerns is Section 7. As some of my colleagues have mentioned, it's nearly impossible to get medical professionals into the rurals. But Section 7 seems to encompass just about the entire state, or at least every community and city in the state, because I think that every single community will fall into this. And so could you help explain, how that prioritization would work when basically every, city or town would qualify in some way, shape, or form? I mean, the last thing I want to do is invest $10 million and not get the medical professionals in the areas where we have none at this time.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, thanks for the question, and happy to discuss, of course, as much as possible to make sure that we've got the best bill in front of us. I think our intention through the regulatory process is to prioritize communities where either there isn't a provider or the wait is so long that there is effectively no provider, right? Bringing optometrists to Fallon, bringing healthcare providers to West Wendover and Pahrump, right? And make sure that if there are not healthcare providers enough to meet the needs of the population in an area, that we can bring those healthcare providers to. But I think through that, through the prioritization in the regulatory process is where the rubber is going to meet the road there. And we've tried to create a bill with enough flexibility that we can work with stakeholders throughout that regulatory process to make sure that what comes out the other side really does meet the intent of bringing healthcare providers to communities where there is not one, and then expanding the amount of coverage in communities where there is a provider, but the wait is simply too long.
And I appreciate that. I just, from a prioritization standpoint, would rather get a general practitioner into West Wendover than a music therapist in Las Vegas. And so I really do genuinely want to sit down and try to work some of this out. Because like I said, I did bring a very similar bill in 2019. Just that $10 million fiscal note always seems to get stuck in Ways and Means. So I thank you for bringing this, Treasurer, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I have Assemblywoman Gonzalez next, and then Taylor after that. And I think that that's all the questions I have right now. So let me know if that's if there is other questions come up.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Cecilia Gonzalez, Assembly District 16 for the record. I see we're playing bobbing and weaving today. Couple questions. First one is for the definition of underserved communities, is it just if they provide Medicaid and or CHIP, or is there any other way that we're defining underserved communities? I see there's definitions, for program, for health provider, but I'm just curious about the underserved community part there.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Erica Menace. For the record, that definition of underserved community is in subsection 4 of section 7, which is...
I guess my question is, it's only if they provide Medicaid and CHIP services. So like doctors who maybe have low-income residents that don't maybe qualify for these programs, they wouldn't fall under this.
So that I wouldn't say that's accurate, Erica Menace, for the record. What it says in the amended language in subsection 6, essentially a provider would have to practice in one of the communities in section 7, but if doctors or providers are committed to serving Medicaid patients, they could be prioritized within that. We heard a lot from healthcare providers that was very important because if we didn't put some sort of strings, sometimes some of those providers may not want the strings attached with serving Medicaid patients. So we wanted to kind of have it both ways where, one, we could still accept someone if they weren't serving Medicaid patients, but we wanted to strongly encourage them to do so. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much. And then I just had 2 quick follow-up questions. 1, are there any other states that do this? And then 2, how did you guys land on 5 years? Because even as a teacher, as an educator in the federal program, right, we have to be in the program for at least 10 years, not missing a single payment. So I'm just curious how you guys got to 5 years, and thank you so much.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I'll take the second part of the question before the first. In the Student Loan Ombudsman's office, we talked to a lot of practitioners, a lot of teachers, a lot of others who are willing to do a thing for 5 years or for 7 years, but they're not willing to do it for 10. And so they never enter the field of public service, either in teaching in a low-income community or in providing health care in a low-income community and the kind of communities we're talking about in this bill, because 10 years is too long. But they've got 5. And so our goal here is to try and fill some of that gap by having a program for individuals who are willing to commit to some level of service, and hopefully we'll find that our rural communities and that our underserved communities are lovely places to live where they want to stay for the rest of their career, but understanding that some of them won't, right? They'll want to go off to somewhere else where they can make more money. We want to get them for 5 years, right? We're looking for a way to get that benefit for some period of time and kind of fill that gap. And on the second question, from a state perspective, I'll turn it to my colleague.
Erica Menace, for the record, thank you for the question. Tons of states have these types of programs. Many of them are similar to something that we already have currently through the University of Nevada, Reno, which is the Public Health Service Corps, which is actually in the federal tax code as well, that it's exempt from federal income tax. I think what differentiates Nevada from a lot of other states is they invest additional dollars into that program, which I think is a good thing to do. But I think as the operators of the Public Health Service Corps program would tell you, they are limited by a lot of, they cannot provide aid to a lot of provider types that we have in Section 4 of the amendment. So what we're trying to do is be complementary to the work that they've asked us to do, and also make sure that we can fund a social worker that may go to a community that needs one. So lots of states have them, but I think it varies on the level of state support.
Thank you. So rounding us out, we have Assemblywoman Taylor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Treasurer, Mr. Jimenez, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for your creativity. And what are the ways that we can provide some assistance in this much-needed area in our state, and that's healthcare providers. Obviously, in this committee, we've heard a lot about that. I just wanted to, it's kind of related but unrelated, if you will. Any thinking around something similar for educators? Another field in our state where we know that we have a great need, not just here in Nevada, but we know it's across the country, but a great need for teachers and those that work in our schools. And related to that, if I may, Madam Chair, does it matter if they work in schools? Any of these that you've designated? Thank you so much.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, answering the second part first, Assemblywoman, I don't believe it would matter if they worked in a school one way or another. If they were providing that service, they'd be eligible for the program. And as to the first question, we'd love to, right? I think that the amount of work that needs to be done to attract teachers to our state, to attract individuals trained in certain construction industries, to attract people who are trained in advanced manufacturing, to attract capital and larger scale businesses, to attract healthcare providers is immense, right? And we as a state should be investing in all of it. This is one piece of a much larger pie necessary to build the Nevada that we all deserve to live in. We started with healthcare providers because in some communities, it's not that they have 5 teaching spots open out of the 10 that are available, it's that they don't have a primary care provider, or that the wait for a primary care provider is much too long. And while we have a number of different revenue streams, and I know that while this committee might talk about them, you all will in the general, as we have a number of streams and revenue streams that are going to help fight that teacher crisis, this is a more targeted approach towards one thing. But you're absolutely right. We'd love to run this program for every type of individual that our community needs to be better.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Conine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the questions today, committee. This is a really important issue and one that we don't hear often in Health and Human Services. Usually these loan bills end up in Commerce and Labor or Government Affairs. So it is lucky for us to be hearing this particular bill, but I don't think we'll be hearing many of the other ones that are coming out of several of the behavioral health policy boards in the state, as well as some other entities. Did you have a comment? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to support testimony, and I will invite, excuse me, Assemblyman Hafen may have a follow-up question. Please go ahead.
Hopefully this will be a very simple question, but I know there's been a lot of questions on the why the in-state tuition, and so if you could just clarify for me, or maybe somebody in support can clarify. My understanding is that it's roughly, to educate a medical doctor, it's about $1 million per student when their tuition is, I believe, $120,000, which is what's being proposed to be paid here. And so to me, what you're proposing is trying to get that return on investment. We're investing $1 million in these students. Their portion's $120,000. I mean, that's 12% of the cost of educating them. Is that an accurate assessment, or maybe one of the supporters can? I see some people shaking their head no. Maybe I'm wrong.
Treasurer Conan, for the record, I'll let the medical professionals behind me speak to the full cost of it. I'm sure some of your colleagues could as well. But when we look at return on investment, that's exactly what we're going for here, right? The state spends just a massive amount of money educating Nevadans, and we want to make sure that those Nevadans can continue to be here and that we remove barriers that might make it easier for them to go to other places to practice the skills that we in part have paid for.
Thank you so much. And I also want to point out that this is like a multi-pronged area, right? It's not just the post-graduation, it's the pre-graduation, right? How do we establish folks in the right student loan for them? How do we make sure they're in the right field of interest for them? How do we make sure that there are jobs out there that can grab them out of school? How do we support them in those communities to establish their home base and their families? I mean, it's a big ask, right, of the state to encompass all of the needs of making sure that our state can keep the medical professionals that we're graduating. But this is just a single component of it, but an important component of the return on investment and making sure that we have skin in the game, making sure our kiddos stay. I say kiddos. I'm feeling my age these days. Our students stay in Nevada. We have one more follow up. I'm going to push us into support right afterwards, but please go ahead, Mr. Gray.
Thank you. I mean, this is a hugely important problem, and I get it. I came from a healthcare background. So talk about the return on the investment. So we've got a student from Utah that comes in, they graduate med school there, they're doing their graduate medical education here under a residency with UNR, at the VA. Are they eligible, and vice versa? What if one of our med students goes there and they're doing their GME there? I'm still not seeing the clear definition of who's eligible.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, certainly as we walked into this committee, we were thinking about individuals who spent their education, career, the full component of it, within our state's borders. As Assemblyman Koenig has pointed out, we are going to need to move a little bit there to make sure that we actually hit the intent. And I think we can certainly look at what if someone comes here for residency but went to school somewhere else, and where do we want to draw that line? Is it a prioritization, or do we look at them the same way? And open to feedback. I know there's a lot of smart people behind me and a lot of smart people on the dais, so I'm sure we can get somewhere. Perfect.
Thank you. Lots of interest in this. We're looking forward to getting into testimony. I'm going to go ahead and invite folks up who are in support of Assembly Bill 45 to the dais, both here and in Las Vegas, and just let BPS know that we're moving into support testimony if they can prepare the lines for those folks who would like to call in. We are limiting support, opposition, and neutral testimony to 20 minutes apiece so that we can get through the other two bills we have today. I realize there are several folks in the audience, so if you have an opportunity to cut down on your statement or provide us with your written statement for the record, that would be great. We're going to offer 2 minutes for testimony today, so please also don't hesitate to say ditto on other folks' testimony. I will go ahead and ask you to say and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Ashley Cruz for the record, ASHLEYCRUZ with Carrera, Nevada. I am here on behalf of Toro University. Toro University is the largest medical school in the state of Nevada, graduating 180 doctors every year. The cost of medical school is extremely high, and any opportunity to help students get through medical school and start practicing without an overwhelming, suffocating debt is extremely helpful. With a severe physician shortage in the state of Nevada, Toro believes that this legislation will help to keep more graduating medical students here in Nevada and increase access to care. Toro University is in support of AB 45 and thanks the bill sponsor for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, I timed my testimony. I should be able to get it in. Good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Marlene Lockard, representing SEIU 1107 and its 11,000 nurses and healthcare professionals. I am here in strong support of AB 45 and would like to thank Treasurer Zach Conine for bringing this bill that would create a fund to repay student loans for nurses and other healthcare providers who commit to at least 5 years of practice in our underserved communities. For so many years, we have recognized the need to adopt meaningful policies to address the critical nurse shortage and doctors here in Nevada and nationally. In fact, I have one headline in a newspaper that reads, "Wanted, a prescription for nurse shortage." The article was dated 1981. Year after year, legislation has been introduced that did nothing to impact the core issues causing the crisis. SEIU recognizes the urgent need to address the shortage of nurses and doctors, particularly in areas that lack adequate access to healthcare services. Nurses are the backbone of our healthcare system, and they play a critical role in delivering quality care to patients. However, many talented individuals who aspire to become nurses face significant financial barriers due to the high cost of education. This bill would create a much-needed incentive for nurses to serve in underserved communities by providing loan repayment assistance, which would make it easier for them to pursue their passion for nursing without the burden of overwhelming debt. And I have more, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lockhart. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider. That's SCHNEIDER, and I'm a policy analyst for the Vegas Chamber. The Vegas Chamber is in support of AB 45. In the wake of the pandemic, we've seen workforce shortages across all industries, but our medical staff shortages are among the most universally felt throughout the entire state. AB 45 is a major step in addressing a severe shortage in available health care. We believe that incentivizing our up-and-coming healthcare providers to stay in-state through an education loan repayment program is a valuable step in filling those workforce gaps. Thank you, Chair Peters and members of the committee for your time and consideration. We urge your support of AB 45.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Ron Ariel. I'm a pediatrician by trade, and I ran for 11 years a medical practice that was kind of a last resort medical practice for many, and an outpatient ICU. And I'm here to strongly support AB 45. First, I want to address Assemblyman Gray's comment about that it takes $1 million to educate a healthcare professional, and $120,000 is 12% of that. Well, to a graduating student, the $1 million isn't relevant. The only relevant thing is $120,000. If I'm making a decision to practice here in Nevada or go someplace else, I don't care that the state invested $1 million. What I care about is I have a loan bill for $120,000 or $150,000 or whatever it is, and I'm going to go where that loan bill gets taken care of. So if Nevada takes care of it, I'll stay here. If somebody else takes care of it, I'll go there. That's how I think we need to think about that. Incidentally, I'm an import. I came from I went to medical school in Philadelphia, so Nevada imported me. Okay, I'm here in particular to push for this bill because, as amended, it supports psychiatry, and we have a problem here. We have a great shortage of psychiatrists. The average in the country is 14.5 psychiatrists per 100,000 population. 30 psychologists per 100,000 population and 15.6 psychiatrists per 100,000 population. In Nevada, that's 14.5 psychologists and 9 psychiatrists per 100,000 population. We are short on psychotherapists. We are short on substance abuse counselors. We're short on pretty much everything. And the percentages of patients here who have substance abuse disorders, who have clinical depression, are much higher than the national average. So we're desperately short of mental health professionals, and this bill is going to address that, I think, adequately. I want to also.
That was 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you just to wrap it up. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Peters and the rest of the committee. For the record, my name is Kira Capurro, KIERRA-CAPURRO, with McDonald Carano. I am happy to lend our voice in support of Treasurer Conine's Assembly Bill 45 on behalf of the Nevada State Society of Anesthesiologists, the Nevada Orthopedic Society, and Northern Nevada Hopes, a community-based organization in Northern Nevada that provides wraparound services to our community's most vulnerable population. We urge your support of Assembly Bill 45. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just for the record, on that previous commenter, they mentioned that Assemblyman Gray had said something about the cost of educating doctors. I believe that was Assemblyman Hafen, if we could correct that on the record. Thank you so much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Peters and the members of the committee. For the record, my name is Susie Martinez, and I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer for the Nevada State AFL-CIO. And on behalf of 150,000 members and 120 unions, we strongly urge your support for Assembly Bill 45 as amended. Inaccessibility for healthcare has been a long-lasting issue in our state. In fact, Nevada currently has over 70 health professional shortage areas, which means that more than 1 million Nevadans don't have access to the care that they need. We must ensure that we can recruit and retain healthcare professionals across our state so that every Nevadan has access to high quality, affordable healthcare that they deserve. This bill, as amended by the Treasurer's Office, would do exactly that by extending the list of healthcare providers who are eligible to participate in the student loan repayment for providers of healthcare in the Unserved Communities program. All in all, it would create a healthier future for our state and ensure that no Nevadan will go without the vital care. I'd like to thank the Treasurer's Office for his hard work on this issue, and I urge the committee to support Assembly Bill 45. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Runzihu, R-U-N-Z-H-I-H-U for the record. I am an undergraduate biochemistry and molecular biology student at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I have devoted the past 18 years of my life to working towards a future career in medicine. This is my passion, to continue learning, to challenge myself, and most importantly, to help others. However, watching inflation skyrocket the price from everything from college tuition to everyday essentials, financial concerns have begun to cloud my future, something that I had previously thought was so clear. I know that my fellow pre-medical peers also share this concern. That is why I'm here today in support of AB 45, because we want to be able to pursue our dreams without financial concerns. I am also here today for the health of current and future Nevadans. According to the United States Census Bureau, by 2060, 25% of the United States population will be 65 years or older. AB 45 will ensure that we maintain a stable workforce of healthcare professionals to provide for our increasing elderly population, in addition to our youth and adults. I urge you all to vote in support of AB 45. This bill has the potential to change the lives of everyone in the state, from the future of students like me to the quality of healthcare offered to our people. If AB 45 were to be passed, I could continue my studies and eventually serve as a healthcare professional in the state of Nevada. Please consider investing in our healthcare system, in our students, and in our future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and I hope that we do justice to keeping you in the state of Nevada. Thank you so much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Peters, members of this committee. I'm Joan Hall, representing the Nevada Rural Hospital Partners. We represent 13 critical access hospitals in rural and frontier Nevada, and there are 17 affiliated RHCs. I appreciate the comments that have been made about assuring that these individuals that get the scholarships go to rural Nevada. We would love them all to come to rural Nevada, but know that the tertiary hospitals and areas that are underserved also need specialists and primary care, so we appreciate that. Maintaining an adequate healthcare workforce in rural Nevada remains one of the key challenges that we face, providing quality care. Data and statistics support our needs, and if you need to see those data or statistics, I'm not going to give them to you today, but NHA has a great guide with bullet points, very simple to read. And those of you who like lots of information, UNR puts out this guide, the Rural and Frontier Health Data Book. It's got an amazing amount of information to support the needs in rural Nevada. You will hear, as you heard earlier, several other bills this session. I pray that you don't consolidate them into this one, but we have as many tools possible in our toolbox to meet Nevada's needs. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters and Assembly Health and Human Services. I'll keep this short. My name is Joelle Gutman-Dodson with the Washoe County Health District, and we're here in support today for this bill. There are several or a couple bills going similar to this through happening this session. One is from the Washoe County Behavioral Health Board, and we are supportive of that bill, obviously, too. We appreciate the inclusion of behavioral health and all of the amended professions that were added today. We all know that improved access to care, it creates a healthier community, and we're in support. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take this one last testimony in Carson City, then we're going to move to Vegas and the phones to make sure we get folks in there, and then we'll come back to Carson City to let people wrap up if we have time. Please go ahead and state your name and spell it for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaco Estacio, spelled DJECKO-ESTACIO for the record. I am a neuroscience student in my freshman year of my undergrad in the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm not one of those people who's in the medical field due to a late relative. In fact, becoming a doctor wasn't originally the dream of mine, but it's more so a dream that was imposed upon me by my family. Luckily enough, I have way more than expectations to keep me motivated to stay on the pre-med track. By that I mean I actually enjoy being here. I enjoy learning about how vaccines work and how the brain functions, or how a cancerous tumor can be treated as a separate parasitic organism. While yes, this is a path that's been put upon me, this is one that I've come to embrace. Something I feel is important to take note of is that I'm a first-generation, low-income immigrant college student. Currently, I work on campus to help pay off my tuition. For someone with a similar background to mine, luck plays a bigger role than it would for a regular student, as financial issues present themselves as one of the primary obstacles. This is precious time that I could be spending nurturing relationships, which is very important for someone my age, continuing my education, or even saving up for med school instead of my current tuition. This is a struggle common to medical students and a concern that should not be put aside simply due to the amount of a doctor's salary. Last night, I got a call from my little brother that my mom's in the hospital. I'm genuinely scared for her because I didn't get much detail of her condition, as well as for myself because I'm out here trying not to get stranded, both financially and emotionally. This is why I'm here. I urge you all to vote for AB 45. I believe this is a bill that will greatly benefit not only the future medical professionals, but also the people of the state. Public health is one thing that should always be prioritized. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, and I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I hope that she pulls through. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and go to Las Vegas, and then we'll come back up to Carson City. Please go ahead, state your name and spell it for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Peters and committee members. My name is Eric Jang, ERICJENG, Acting Executive Director for One API Nevada, here in support of AB 45. Nevada is home to over 392,000 Asian Pacific Islander Americans, around 12.5%. As the fastest growing community, we are aware the infrastructure to support our community in tangible way is lagging and lacking. So here are the challenges and barriers our communities are facing. First, I think everyone knows this. According to the Department of Education, we lead the nation in the highest student loan default rate. And then on the national level, Asian American students have the highest unmet financial needs. In particular, we see multiple segments in healthcare, nursing school, and medical school when it comes to higher education. Also, 2018 American Community Survey put Nevada have third highest rate of AAPIs in the healthcare workforce, about 19%, close to 20,000 people. And we're very excited for this bill, for this proposal that relieve the student loan burden to our community. And also, we like to applaud Treasurer Conine and Chief Deputy Jimenez on the inclusion of limited English proficient service. Currently, there are 68,000 households in Nevada that are limited English proficient. So we want to see this come in We want to see this in fruition and making sure that we can help promote the program. In 2 sessions ago in 2019, our organization's top priority was help create the Office of Student Loan Ombudsman. I'm very excited to see it in action. And our federal advocacy for both health equity, language justice, as well as student loan forgiveness are met here in a creative state-based solution. This bill will be a win for our healthcare provider, will be a win for our limited English proficient community, will be a win for health equity. So we want to thank the Treasurer's Office and thank you for the committee. Lastly, on personal note, by the end of this week, I will reach a 5-year anniversary for serving the limited English proficient community here for the AAPI community by this weekend. My parents hope that I went to medical school instead. So hopefully this bill can really encourage more of our community members to stay here, to really serve our community and make Nevada a better state. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service in Nevada. I'm going to go, is there anybody else in Las Vegas who would like to testify in person in support of AB 45? Not seeing anybody come up to the table, so I'm going to ask BPS to go ahead and open the phone lines and ask folks if they are in support of AB 45. Add the first person to the line, please.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Peters and members of the committee. For the record, this is Valerie Haskin, VALERIEHASKIN, Rural Regional Behavioral Health Coordinator, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Rural Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board. As the priorities of the board have already been addressed with previous speakers, I would just like to ensure that the board's support of AB 45 is on record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Haskin. Please add the next caller to the line.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Megan Komlossy, that's COMLOSSY, and I am testifying on behalf of the Nevada Healthcare Workforce and Pipeline Development Work Group, which is a statewide initiative that aims to improve, grow, and diversify Nevada's public health, behavioral health, and primary care workforces. The group brings together more than 40 leaders from across the state. They represent a variety of sectors and are working to break down the silos in which workforce development has traditionally occurred. And one of the work group's priority is increasing incentives for healthcare professionals to practice in Nevada, including expanding eligibility for and the use of loan repayment programs. And AB 45 does just that. It would complement existing loan repayment programs and serve as one of the many solutions needed to help recruit and retain the wide range of healthcare professionals Nevada so desperately needs. I think there are two things that are really great about this bill, and that is it would be another tool in the proverbial toolbox to address workforce development. And the second thing is that the Treasurer's Office has identified a funding source to fund this loan repayment program, which is creative and resourceful, and one of the challenges that we often face in trying to fund workforce shortage initiatives. So appreciate the opportunity to provide the work group's comments and appreciate your consideration of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Kumlasi. Please add the next caller to the line.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Dr. Michael Johnson. I'm the Director of Community Health for the Southern Nevada Health District. The Southern Nevada Health District is here to express our strong support of AB 45. Working with our partners, we recently released the Southern Nevada Community Health Improvement Plan, a community-wide strategic planning effort that was a collaboration of government agencies, healthcare providers, nonprofits, and academia. Through this effort, we identified public health priorities in 4 key areas, and one of those is access to care. This bill would help to expand access to qualified healthcare professionals in areas of highest need, and we are fully in support of these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to mention for folks in the room and for the record that we have reached 20 minutes for support. I'm going to entertain those who are on the phone line, and we'll assess where we're at after that. Please, BPS, add the next caller to the line.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 951, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Sarah Watkins, WAPKINS, and I am the Executive Director for the Nevada State Medical Association. I am representing my members and board and would like to support Assembly Bill 45. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Let's please add the next caller to the line.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Brianna Escamilla, BRIANA ESCAMILLA for the record, calling in on behalf of Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada, and we are in strong support of AB 45. It is no secret to anyone who has ever tried to receive medical care in Nevada that there is a provider shortage. That shortage is felt strongly in the reproductive health care sector, especially after the Dobbs decision last summer, which caused an influx of patients from other states. We are proud to stand behind a bill that seeks to address provider shortages while also providing incentives for students to pursue a career in healthcare, particularly in Nevada's underserved communities. We urge you to support this bill. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Please add the next caller to the line.
One moment, Chair.
While we're waiting on the BPS line, just so I can get an idea of what amount of time we may need for opposition and neutral testimony, if you are in Carson City in opposition or a neutral testimony for AB 45, would you mind standing or raising your hand so I can get a count for our time needs? Not that we're judging you by doing this. Okay, all right. We're going to continue with support testimony then. Please, BPS, let us know when you're ready.
Caller with the last three digits, 235. You are unmuted and may begin.
Hi, this is Dr. Barry Cole, Barrycole in Reno, Nevada. I'm a volunteer with the Department of Psychiatry, and I've actually practiced psychiatry in towns of 10,000, 7,500, and 4,500, and successfully run practices. I can't tell you how delighted I am that there's been a declaration that psychiatry is now a primary care specialty. I'm almost 70. I never thought this day would actually come. It brings tears to my eyes. But I want to remind you that beyond AB 45, which is a start, we still need more high-quality postgraduate education, more residencies, more fellowships, and then jobs when people finish. Being an incrementalist, it means we take steps towards a goal. And this assistance with potentially crippling student debt should incentivize more Nevada healthcare graduates to consider caring for our fellow citizens and staying in Nevada. Thank you again for AB 45, supporting it and helping psychiatry feel like it's now at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cole, for your testimony. Please add the next caller on the line for support of AB 45.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Andrea Gregg. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for High Sierra Area Health Education Center. Our Nevada AHEC program aims to build a strong and diverse healthcare workforce for Nevada's underserved communities through education, training, and community partnerships. And through our boots on the ground efforts, we hear countlessly how many concerns come from our students who aspire to be the future practitioners for our state. Purely because of the fear of payment and coverage and allowances for them to pursue those careers. So I think this is a great step forward. Kudos to Treasurer Conine and your team for your thought innovation, and most importantly for identifying a sustainable funding source to support such an effort. Student loan repayment programs are not just a matter of financial relief for the individual borrowers, but also strategic investment that really alleviates the burden of student debt, but also allows those graduates to pursue careers based on their skills and their passions rather than their debt repayment obligations. So I think this in turn is really going to help retain talent within the state, as well as attract new and make genuine investments where we need the most, which is the current talent pool that our state currently has. So High Sierra AHEC would like to express support for AB 45. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gregg, for your testimony. Please add the next caller to the line.
Hi, thank you, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Steve Messenger, STEVEMESSINGER, representing the Nevada Primary Care Association and our federally qualified health centers that serve underserved areas and populations, including in rural areas, and patients best served in a language other than English. We support AB 45 as amended and believe this proposal could be a great benefit to our members and patients. And we would like to thank the Treasurer and his office for listening to our concerns and proposing this innovative solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm going to go ahead and come back to Carson City here for support testimony. Please remember, state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters and committee members. For the record, my name is Steve Walker, Stebewalker. I am representing Lyon County. We're finding ways to encourage healthcare providers to work within rural areas is difficult. We see this as a strategy with the potential to have some positive impacts for the shortage of providers working and willing to work in rural Nevada. Additionally, I agree with Assemblyman Gray. We need to refine the definition of eligibility for the counties and the cities in rural Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to assume that is in support as amended, but that last statement, maybe follow up with the treasurer on that. Please go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters and members of the committee. My name is Donna Laffey, Donnalaffey. I'm here with Ferrari Reader Public Affairs. We're representing Dignity Health St. Rose Dominican. St. Rose is proud to support AB 45 to assist in increasing the number of providers in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Peters and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Austin Brown, that's B-R-O-W-N, and I am here today on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno, as we would like to voice support for Assembly Bill 45. As a university involved in public health efforts statewide in both rural and urban areas of Nevada, with a first-hand look at the importance of prioritizing public health infrastructure and workforce of our state, we urge you to support AB 45. At the University of Nevada, Reno School of Medicine, Dr. John Packham runs a loan repayment program, and through the creation of the Student Loan Repayment for Providers of Healthcare in Underserved Communities program, this bill would help address critical shortages in our public health and healthcare workforce across the state, while also creating sustainable funding sources. Thank you for your consideration of support for AB 45.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Mr. Brown. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Kent Irvin, K-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-N, State President, Nevada Faculty Alliance, the Association of Professional Employees at Nevada's public colleges and universities. We support making college affordable. There's been a long-term trend of declining support for public higher education, leading to higher student fees and tuition. The high student fees are being funded in great part through student debt, which can be onerous. While those larger systemic issues require systemic solutions beyond this committee's purview, we support AB 45 because it provides student debt relief for a very important population while also encouraging healthcare providers to serve underserved communities in Nevada. Thanks to Treasurer Conine, and thank you all for working on AB 45.
Thank you so much. And before folks move up to I was going to ask if we have students in the audience who would like to testify, please come up. But I would like to ensure your testimony is on the record. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Kennedy McKinney. For the record, I'm here on behalf of Human Services Network and the National Association of Social Workers. Knowing time is limited, I wanted to keep my comments short and just say that both organizations are in full support of AB 45 and the proposed amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We are here today in strong support of AB 45. We know that student loan debt is a huge issue for so many across our state, and we also know that access to health care and providers is a major issue across our state. This bill helps with both issues and keeps more of our talented students in Nevada and practicing in key communities across our state. These are the types of programs that we must start offering to Nevadans to get ahead and to meet the needs of our people. We thank the Treasurer for his work on this innovative measure and hope that you all will continue to expand programs like this to other borrowers in the future. Please support this important measure. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Voskov. I represent ASUN, that's UNR's undergraduate student government. We support this bill, recognize the need for qualified healthcare professionals in our state, and understand firsthand the difficulties of navigating higher education as a health student. Thank you for your consideration of this bill today.
Thank you for your testimony. Please begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Leah Case, Leacase, here today on behalf of the Nevada Psychiatric Association. Really wanted to get on record to say thank you to the treasurer and his policy analyst. I had so many students and residents reach out to me via text and email and phone calls for the past 24, 28 hours going, how can we support this? What can we do? And I gave them the phone number to call in, but they are medical students and residents and are working and in school. So I just wanted to say thank you for hearing this bill and for supporting our future psychiatrists in Nevada. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that. And actually with that, I just want to direct our committee's attention to several exhibits that we have received, letters of support. If you in your time can review those, that would be great. We don't have anybody else in Carson City at the table. I did miss one person on the call-in line, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the call-in lines for our last support testimony. BPS, would you please add our last caller to the line?
Caller, if you would like to testify in support on Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now. If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now. One moment, Chair. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute on your end. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Attar Hasibullah, first name spelled A-T-H-A-R, last name H-A-S-E-E-B-U-L-L-A-H. I serve as the Executive Director for the American Civil Liberties Union of Nevada. We believe this bill is a significant and proactive step in advancing civil rights, and we're fully supportive of this bill. We do want to thank the sponsor for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move into opposition testimony. Is there anybody in Carson City who would like to provide opposition testimony on AB 45? Seeing none. I can't see Las Vegas at the moment, but I'm going to ask if anybody in Las Vegas would like to provide opposition testimony, that you go ahead and turn on your mic and begin when you're ready. It appears there's nobody in Las Vegas for opposition testimony. Go ahead and ask BPS to open the lines for opposition testimony on AB 45.
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and open neutral testimony on AB 45. Is there anybody in Carson City who would like to provide neutral testimony on AB 45? Seeing none, go ahead and move to Las Vegas. Is there anybody in Las Vegas who would like to provide neutral testimony on AB 45? Seeing none, I would ask BPS to open the lines for those who might provide neutral testimony on AB 45.
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now. Again, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now.
Cyrus, C-Y-R-U-S. There's a lot of great things about this bill. I just wish that this bill was being passed at a time when other problems such as underserved communities, language barriers are being solved. So I understand this is helpful, but I really see this as more as a Band-Aid to the problem, not solving the entire structure and root causes of where we're at. Yield my time.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else who would like to provide neutral testimony on AB 45?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 45, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no other callers choosing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and invite the bill sponsor back to the table if they have closing remarks. All right, please remember to state your name for the record before you begin.
Zach Conine, for the record. I still have the pleasure of being your Nevada State Treasurer. I just want to thank members of the committee so much for the comments and the feedback. Our office has reached out to your attaches to set up some time in the near future, and so I look forward to doing that, and we'll circle around with the rest of the committee. And then, Chair, I just have to say, in the Treasury, we don't get to come in front of this committee that often, but we like to go, as we do in investments, where the opportunity and the need is, and we're happy that we ended up here. So thanks for the time.
Grateful for you being here, Treasurer Conine, and thank you so much for bringing the bill. We look forward to seeing any future amendments that may come out, and keep us looped in. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 45, and we're going to move on to Assembly Bill 132. I think that is, okay. Welcome, Assemblywoman Cohen. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Please go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, for hearing Assembly Bill 132. Thank you, Committee. I'm Leslie Cohen, representing Assembly District 29. Presenting with me is Trey Delap from Group 6 Partners. Mr. Delap has worked in behavioral health, addiction, and recovery policy for years and specializes in advocating in the spaces where they converge. As you're aware, the opioid epidemic has swept through the country, causing death to people in all walks of life, regardless of age, religion, education, race, social standing, and the like. And now fentanyl has caused a bad situation to be even more dire. Mr. Delap's going to provide a brief history of opioid legislation in Nevada, and then we'll discuss the bill and our conceptual amendment.
Madam Chair, members of the Assembly Health and Human Services Committee, Trey Delap, Director of Group 6 Partners, for the record, and thank you for hearing AB 132 today. Thank you, Assemblywoman Cohen, for bringing AB 132 for your consideration. In each of the past 4 sessions, the Nevada Legislature has addressed the opioid epidemic through legislation. First, in 2015, Governor Brian Sandoval signed the Good Samaritan Drug Overdose Act into law, a criminal immunity harm reduction law targeted at encouraging medical care for people at risk of overdose. In 2017, prescribing of opioid medications was addressed by expanding utilization of the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program and reducing overprescribing of opioids, a successful response to the first wave of the opioid epidemic. In 2019 and in 2021, expanding access to naloxone in schools, which ultimately passed thanks to Assemblywoman Cohen's AB 205 from last session, empowering every school in Nevada to have naloxone on hand with personnel trained in its use. I'm happy to report that most schools in Nevada do have naloxone on campus, and lives have been saved because of it.
So, and I just want to mention that AB 205 was co-sponsored by now Senator Titus and I, and it was begun with work in 2019 by former Speaker Hambrick. So this has been a truly bipartisan effort. As Mr. Delap mentioned, AB 205 has been successful in schools, and we've had reports of it preventing deaths of students by allowing for opioid antagonists in schools. So given that success, I contacted Mr. Delap prior to this session beginning, and because of his knowledge on the subject and contacts in the field, and asked what possible legislation should we be considering and looking at to continue the work we're doing to mitigate the issues of opioids in Nevada and to try to prevent more opioid deaths in our state. Mr. Delap reached out to stakeholders and came back to me with the idea of the overdose fatality review.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Cohen. Madam Chair, Trey Delap for the record. Overdose Fatality Review, OFR, is a locally based multidisciplinary process for understanding the risk factors and circumstances leading to fatal overdoses and identifying opportunities to prevent overdoses. The basis of OFR, like all fatality reviews, is that overdose fatalities could have been prevented with the right action, timing, intervention, and response. Overdose deaths can be prevented with 4 key capacities: to coordinate prevention strategies with timely implementation of evidence-based interventions, community mobilization, and engaging supportive families and friends. The shared understanding that overdose deaths are preventable guides the entire overdose fatality review process. Federal agencies such as the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are strategically coordinating to mobilize local communities to develop and implement OFRs throughout the country. One of several programs in Nevada using federal grant dollars to combat the opioid epidemic is the Nevada Overdose to Action, NVOD2A, because we don't have enough acronyms. Focused on examining data on overdose fatality, they found that 77% of decedents had at least one potential opportunity for linkage to care prior to death or implementation of a life-saving action at the time of overdose. These potential opportunities were recent release from an institution like prison, jail, treatment, or hospital within the past month, a previous non-fatal overdose, a mental health or co-occurring mental health diagnosis, prior treatment of substance use disorder, bystanders present when the fatal overdose occurred, and witnessed fatal overdose taking. This is where fentanyl kicks in. Each of the remedy to each of the things I just listed is more access to naloxone. Fentanyl, 1 in 3 deaths due to overdose fatality of opioids is attributable to illicitly manufactured fentanyl, which was found in 36% of all opioid deaths. Also, 81% of opioid fatalities occurred in the home. The high potency rate of fentanyl has precipitated and increased us into wave 3 of the opioid epidemic. So wave 1 was overprescribing, wave 2 was heroin, now we're in wave 3 of the prevalence of synthetic fentanyl. With thorough analysis, opportunities for resource deployment reveal themselves, but 2 problems remain. First, data is so delayed that it is forensic rather than actionable. Second, the state is unable to mobilize resources and interventions fast enough to prevent overdose deaths that could be prevented. The solution is to engage a robust OFR at the community level comprised by stakeholders active in opioid response already, with the capacity to advocate or implement effective interventions to support and empower them to ensure public health responsiveness, likely to have the greatest impact. Nevada is diverse, and a single response to opioid fatalities is not likely to be culturally competent in a top-down approach. 3 of the 4 core actions OFRs may address are community and family-based. The aim of Assembly Bill 132 is to empower and engage appropriate local agencies to conduct OFRs and craft, implement, and evaluate community responses. To optimize OFRs, AB 132 grants access to vital information to collect and conduct the OFR. The NVOD2A, OD2A, did a pilot project for OFR, and they found two recommendations: leveraging existing fatality review and support dedicated fatality review resources, facilitation, and documentation. AB 132 provides a statutory opportunity to implement these recommendations. Ongoing surveillance will provide ongoing information and analysis. Research on OFRs in all the states that happen concludes that overdose fatality review is an effective means of understanding the opioid epidemic, strengthening coordinated interventions, and informing local and state health department overdose prevention strategic planning. Teams have a unique vantage point from which to view systems-level gaps and policy issues because of their collaborative nature and the quality of data provided by agencies that directly serve the decedents. AB 132 is the opportunity for Nevada to prevent future opioid deaths by learning everything possible from those who have already passed. With intention, Nevada can expand culturally relevant prevention, intervention, promote recovery, and restore families and communities. Thank you.
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. So as detailed in the exhibit for the bill, and as Mr. Delab detailed, overdose fatality review has been found to be successful in assisting with providing data necessary to curtail opioid overdose deaths. So when we began this process to introduce overdose fatality review to Nevada through this bill, we initially thought the review would be most effective if it were similar to the Suicide Review Committee, which is currently housed in DHHS. However, per the CDC and the Bureau of Justice Assistance of the Department of Justice, we found that best practices require more flexibility than the Suicide Review Committee structure allows. Moreover, as we have proceeded and consulted further with the recovery community and stakeholders, we have determined that the overdose fatality review may be more effective by focusing on work to be done at a more local level than at the state level. So as such, our conceptual amendment allows for the sharing of aggregate data with agencies and institutions throughout the state and at a more local level. So by this amendment, which you have the conceptual amendment, local agencies and institutions which want to use the data constructively will have that opportunity. Using the data at a local level effectively and immediately, and that's the immediately is the key part, can be seen in other jurisdictions. So for instance, a county in Indiana used its local data immediately to determine that there was an overdose spike occurring, and the local authorities were able to respond by increasing the availability of naloxone, thereby saving lives. And then 3 Indiana counties worked together, and they utilized the data to determine that there was a trend of deaths occurring to individuals right after they visited the dentist. It wasn't a particular dentist. There weren't dentists doing anything nefarious, but just that there were prescriptions happening. But as such, the counties got together and they provided training to dentists regarding substance misuse risk screenings, and thereby those 3 counties were able to break the trends in their county through prescriptions from the dentist. So for instance, if we pass the legislation, an example of how this would work would be something like, let's say, a local health district in Nevada or a hospital in a particular city realized that they were seeing a great deal of overdose happening regularly around the same time in a given week. They could use the data to determine that maybe it was happening around the time that there was a regularly held street fair in their area. And that health district or hospital could do a few things with the data, such as making sure there were more EMTs on site at that street fair with naloxone. They could also set up booths to hand out naloxone kits at the fair, teach fair goers about the dangers of opioids and overdosing and fentanyl as well. And so it would be this immediate reaction, this immediate ability of the health district or the hospital to react and to save lives. Again, the key is to allow local agencies and institutions to have access to the data with enough time to have a rapid response. So therefore, our bill language will be amended, and we haven't quite got there yet. It's a work in progress, but it's going to allow for the agencies and institutions at the local levels to have access to aggregate data regarding overdoses. And this is going to align with the best practices in 12 states, which have already worked with overdose fatality review and that work at the very local level. And then also the other thing that the amendment's going to do that's different than what came out of drafting is this is going to be only for opioid deaths to allow us to have data-informed action as quickly as possible regarding opioid deaths. The concentration is going to be on opioids because we know that 65% of overdose deaths involve opioids, and we have this epidemic of opioid deaths unlike anything else. But we also have a tool in naloxone, which is basically like any other tool we have for preventing deaths from overdose, and we need to maximize that ability to use that tool. So that will also be part of our amendment. So with that, we are ready for any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I had a quick question. I was wondering if we have Ms. Finney in the audience from DHHS, if you could respond to where data is at the state and what kind of data we are collecting, how early are we receiving it upon an overdose death, and what does that sharing potentially look like today?
Thank you very much, Chair Peters. Cody Finney, for the record, Deputy Administrator for the Division of Public and Behavioral Health in their Planning and Regulatory section. The collection of data is a really multifaceted area. We do have our Office of Analytics that has access to much data. Certainly having it in time, as Mr. DeLapp and Ms. Cohen alluded to, having it fast enough to be actionable is challenging at times. For example, when they're using Medicaid claims data, that is not going to be actionable in a spike situation. However, some of that data is. I would invite and urge Mr. DeLapp and Ms. Cohen and any other interested parties I would be happy to facilitate a meeting with the Office of Analytics and make sure that we have identified where those data sources are technically possible to get that information fast enough for the purpose that they describe. I want to make sure that I don't promise something that we can't technically do, and that's not the part I usually do. So if that's a possibility, I can absolutely speak for the department and say we are eager to do that.
Thank you so much for being available and coming up to answer that question. I've been thinking about Assembly Bill 181 from last legislative session, where we discussed a lot of the similar issues related to suicide deaths and suicide attempts and trying to obtain data early. And it is not easy. It's a burden on our facilities to try and obtain that data. So the more we can work together on trying to get that, the better off we'll be. Are there questions from the committee for folks in attendance? Assemblyman Hafen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just was doing a quick Google search. It appears Nevada already has the NVOD2A program, and it looks like there's a pretty extensive list of organizations: Southern Nevada Health District, Washoe Health District, UNR, Board of Pharmacies, et cetera. I won't read them all off, but it appears that program's already in place, they've already are doing the overdose surveillance, and the most recent data that they have available is January 2023, at least for the statewide data. And so I'm kind of curious, is your idea to now replace all those different organizations that, the data's only a month old, to try to get faster expedited data, or am I missing something altogether? I just, quick Google search, sorry.
Madam Chair, Treadale, for the record, through you to Assemblyman.
Please feel free to go directly to the member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good Google in there. Two things I want to mention. SUDOR, because we don't have enough acronyms. SUDORs, SUDORS is the likely report you're looking at. The Nevada State Unintentional Overdose Reporting System, SUDORS. It does provide monthly information, but if you look down, you might see that the source of the information it will say when it was obtained. SUDORS is a abstracted and aggregated data system that does live at the state. So they get information when they get it. As another program that the state has, and this is mainly in the Office of the Attorney General, is OD Maps. It's an overdose mapping system. The idea behind OD Maps is similar to a biotoxin. If you see an instance of ricin appearing somewhere, you have a major issue. And the idea with OD Maps is that first responders, when they administer naloxone, would report that to the system, and because of the cluster phenomena. So basically what happens, and this is what we've seen in the last few years, Students at high school, at Bishop Minogue High School, for example, you see one person that overdoses and dies, and then within 12, 24 hours, you see another person, another person, another person, another person. So the likely source of their substances came from the same place. So the instance that information is reported can then provide a heat map. So then public health authorities, resources can be mobilized to go into the area with naloxone and engage however is appropriate. The problem with OD maps is that's its intention and design, but it's relying on EMS to actually put the data in or however they integrate it into their system. The other challenge that we have, and Ms. Finney mentioned this, a lot of the information about overdoses is obtained through billing data, ICD-10 codes, which are only as good as the person coding them and only make it into the system as fast as they make it into. So often one of the wrinkles that OD2A has maps is someone's got to go do this. And if they're not doing it in a timely fashion, that's the point we have. What is lost in the SUDORs particularly is the opportunity to get as much information about the person who died that could be trending or could be assessment as a risk factor. The example that Assemblywoman Cohen mentioned about the dental office, who would have thought that? But that's the power of a local community that's keeping an eye on things, that has stakeholder buy-in to a reporting system. They can identify a spike that no one could have really anticipated and respond accordingly. So there is data, but the delay is a problem. And also, it's not uniform by counties. Not all counties report, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up?
Well, yeah, just the data that I'm looking at, and you're correct, it's not January. The report is January. The data is directly from December 2022 in the statewide report, and it's coming from. It's actually being prepared by DHHS in conjunction with UNR and the Nevada Opioid Response.org, and there is alarming rate of opioids being used in the southern rural counties in Washoe, especially in comparison to Clark County. And my question didn't get answered on whether or not this new committee would replace or supplement what's currently being done with the NV-OD2A. And so if you could just answer that for me, thank you.
Madam Chair, trade up for the record to Assemblyman Hafen. No, this is not intended to replace. This is intended to optimize. So data is being collected, it's being aggregated. OD2A discloses that their biggest limitation in SUDORs and these other programs is the delay in the data being reported and then abstracted. So the concept here is an entity with the capacity to do this, take on this project, perform opioid fatality reviews, would be given access through this bill to this information, ensuring that confidentiality is maintained, and enhance current systems and make them faster. That's really the key. And then also, you know that the urban areas do have the higher spike, and that's where an OD map for spike map would be the most helpful, because one of the challenges Nevada has as a small state with a major population center and giant geographic area is whenever you're looking at per capita or rate data, it's always population based. So that is a barrier.
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Let me just add, so no one's being forced to do anything, but it's making sure that if a local agency wants to do something, they have the ability to get the data to do it. They can get it quickly, and they have, in statute, they are permitted to get that data. That's all that's doing. It's making sure that they have the access to the data so that they can make a quick response if they choose to do so.
And thank you. I just want to clarify, the SUDA program is not what I'm looking at. It's actually they call it DOSE. It's the Nevada Drug Overdose Surveillance that I'm actually looking at that, again, comes from DHHS. And I do agree that, having the data in real time would be more beneficial. If we had law enforcement that could have the information immediately so they could go into a school and try to investigate what's going on. And then I did want to clarify, I may have misspoke. The data that I'm looking at is actually Nye and Lincoln have a bigger opioid overdose problem than Clark County. And so it's not the urban areas, but it's literally Nye and Lincoln that have the bigger problems on a per 100,000 basis. So I just wanted to clarify the data that I'm looking at. And again, I agree that real-time data would be wonderful, especially to get into the hands of law enforcement so they could get in there. I do believe that we probably need to tighten up some of our penalties when it comes to those that are distributing fentanyl. I believe there's a bill on the Senate side to do that, and so I look forward to that because it is a problem. So I thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I don't think we will be hearing that bill. That'll go to judiciary, but it is something to keep an eye on. I do want to direct the committee to February 17th presentation to the Interim Health and Human Services Committee that addressed a lot of the issues that are being discussed today, including just the lag time on data receipt, and that for historically we've been waiting on mortality data, which depends on the local. What are they called? Coroner, sorry, the coroner to determine the cause of death, and that can take months. So I think that there's been several attempts to try and get at earlier data. It's really coordinating in the communities on how to do that. So I look forward to seeing how this bill fleshes out. Are there other questions from the committee? I have a few that I'd like to ask about your conversations with local governments. So how are they feeling about their ability to either obtain data locally or utilize this data? Have you had those discussions with them?
Madam Chair, trade up for the record in response to your question. So local government is an interesting question when we talk about Southern Nevada. So really, most of the naloxone distribution and the fentanyl strip distribution happens at the Southern Nevada Health District, which is overseen by a bunch of municipalities. So we've got city, county stuff working together. The intent of this is to create the opportunity. If an entity, a government, if the Lyon County Sheriff or Lyon County Fire or whoever wants to take this on and they meet certain criteria, then they can do this process, do the process of the opioid fatality review. So to answer your question succinctly, which is probably what you preferred, no, Las Vegas, the city, or whoever isn't chomping at the bit to do this per se, and that is why we want the legislation to be enabling. Did I say that correctly?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions from the committee before we move on to testimony? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into support testimony. Yes,
Madam
please
Chair,
go ahead.
If I can make just a closing statement real quick. First, I want to thank you for dedicating very precious legislative time. It occurred to me in preparation for this that I'm like the ghost of death. Every time I come before this committee for 3 sessions in a row, it's talking about death and dying kids, so I apologize for that. But this is an unpleasant topic, but it's very important. And I'm here in a private capacity because I really represent 2 categories of people. The first category are nonprofit agency organizations who can't really take positions on for or against, but they're slugging it out every day in the field trying to help people recover. So that's the first category. The second category are families, the affected, afflicted, or people at risk for opioid overdose death. whether it's their first or 100th dose that kills them, either way, their voice is gone. And the result is pain, anger, frustration, and stigma. And that keeps a lot of people quiet. Through this bill, we're asking for the opportunity for capable stakeholders to look at everything that surrounds an opioid fatality in order to learn how we can prevent them, understanding that they are preventable. These are unintentional overdoses. And finally, I want to extend a profound thanks to Assemblywoman Cohen. For 3 consecutive sessions, she has put her name on bills to advance life-saving measures, specifically ABO2. There are young people today going to school that are alive because of what Assemblywoman Cohen brought and what the legislature did in creating the enabling legislation. They may not know that she is to thank, you are to thank for that. So, and also, by having this conversation, by having a hearing on this bill, you are demonstrating, in my opinion, the value of having these conversations free of moral judgment and stigma to be heard. And so I thank you again to you and to the whole committee for hearing this bill, and thanks again.
Oh, I appreciate those comments. It really is an issue area that is not, it's not sexy or desirable to have these conversations. We know people turn their nose or their cheek to these conversations around addiction and drug overdose in particular, and we often think to leave it to law enforcement when it can be something that we integrate into our community as a support system for folks before overdose occurs. And I appreciate that that sentiment. Thank you so much for the presentation. Assemblywoman Cohen, I'm sorry. It has come to my attention that there is another amendment in our exhibits from James Fleming. I'm just curious if that is a friendly amendment or if you've seen that one.
Thank you, Chair Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. No, I have seen it, but I think it was because the gentleman hadn't yet realized that we were taking this out of DHHS. So I had emailed him to let him know that we were taking it out of DHHS. So I don't know if he wants to continue with it, but no, I don't consider it friendly.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into support testimony on Assembly Bill 132. Is there anyone in Carson City who would like to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 132? Please go ahead. Remember to state and spell your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair Peters, members of the committee. My name is Jimmy Lau with Ferrari Reader Public Affairs, representing Dignity Health St. Rose Dominican. First name Jimmy, last name Lau, Lau. We're in support of the concept of increasing access to this type of data at the local level. We appreciate Assemblywoman Cohen clarifying that and also clarifying that there wouldn't be any mandates associated with it. We think that the expansion of the access to this data can really help folks be reactive to the growing problem of overdoses in our society. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City who would like to provide support testimony on Assembly Bill 132? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to provide support testimony on Assembly Bill 132? Seeing none, I will ask BPS to open the lines for support testimony on Assembly Bill 132 and add the first caller to the line when they're ready.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 132, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 132, please press star 9 now.
Hi, my name is Adrienne O'Reilly, ADRIENNE, O''R''EILLY. Thank you for your time. I'm here today to honor my cousin, who was taken from us by a heroin overdose. I've spent years volunteering on the streets with our homeless neighbors suffering with heroin addiction, and in the height of the pandemic, lost 2 clients in one camp due to heroin overdose in the span of 2 weeks. They lived one street in front of me, and I carry the overdose rescue drug naloxone with me. Overdose death is preventable death, and I'm also here today to honor them. I respectfully support AB 132 as proposed, which will create the committee to review overdose fatalities. It's my understanding this committee will review overdose fatalities from both intentional and unintentional overdose death. The creation of this committee will promote organized analysis of overdose fatalities in our state. This will allow us to better understand trends, risk factors, and strategies for prevention. The information gained may also help us propose additional helpful legislation regarding overdose fatalities in Nevada. Getting a better understanding of what causes and who is impacted by overdose death in our state can help us better address the situation and try to reduce the number of overdose fatalities Nevada experiences. Overdose death is preventable death. Please vote yes on AB 132. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there other callers on the line in support of Assembly Bill 132?
Hello, good afternoon. This is Dora Martinez, founder of the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. I agree with the prior caller, and thank you so much for the comment that the gentleman made regarding the Assemblywoman Awesome Cohen, as is known in our crowd of disabled people. And thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you, Chair Peters. Thank you so much. Stay warm.
Thank you so much. We have Assemblywoman Cohen's fan club up here. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Cyrus Hojadi, CYRUS. I support this bill, ditto all the positive support testimonies. I also wish you guys can address how these drugs are coming into our society. Other than that, yield my time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there other callers on the line in support of Assembly Bill 132?
Callers, if you have recently joined and would like to testify in support to Assembly Bill 132, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no other callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move into opposition testimony. Is there anybody in Carson City who would like to provide opposition testimony to Assembly Bill 132? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to provide opposition testimony on Assembly Bill 132? Seeing none, I'd ask BPS to check the phone lines for opposition testimony on Assembly Bill 132.
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 132, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 132, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no other callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move into neutral testimony. Is there anybody in Carson City who would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 132? All right. Please remember to state your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Peters, members of the committee. Joan Hall, representing Nevada Rural Hospital Partners. We house 2 of the rural behavioral health coordinators, and I agree that local entities, especially behavioral health regions, need this information sooner rather than later and would appreciate this. However, from a hospital perspective, I think the current law says that hospitals have 24 hours to report overdoses. Some of the rural communities do rapid screens, but it has to be confirmed by an outpatient lab, so that timing is not fast. And as Ms. Finney said, just the process takes a while. So looking forward to seeing what solutions there are to do this. Also to Assemblyman Hafan's comment about the data, when it's per 100,000, it could be one person that makes Lincoln County the highest, just because of their small population. So it's an interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City who would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 132? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 132? Seeing none, I'd ask BPS to open the lines for neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 132.
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 132, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Hello, this is Barry Cole, Barry-Cole again, calling in neutrality because I'm thinking AB 132 is a starting point that will need some continued evolution. The reason I say that is the DEA is now launching a one pill can kill campaign, has removed the restrictions for the prescribing of buprenorphine so that you don't need a special CSAT waiver, you don't need a special DEA number, and you don't have any restrictions on the numbers that you can treat. I think that this committee, as it forms, will be looking for root causes of overdoses. But what scares me is that currently patients that I've treated in the past year have told me they go out and look for fentanyl products and they know full well fentanyl is in them. Rather than being frightened when there's clusters of overdoses, it seems to pull them toward the drug. And as we all know, the disease of addiction has been termed the disease of stinking thinking. I don't find that many substance users do any kind of cost-benefit analysis when they choose to use. So we have a situation where there are lethal products on the street, like sleepy dope, the mixture of fentanyl and methamphetamine, with a high probability of an overdose that's fatal. We have illicit drugs being sold as knockoff, counterfeit drugs that look like what you're looking for, but doesn't contain what you're expecting to get. So there's going to have to be some linkage of this piece of legislation with criminal justice related to who's dealing drugs, what's in them, and how are we going to stop this. So I'm neutral at this time till we can clarify the details. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony, Dr. Cole. Is there anyone else on the public comment line or public testimony for neutral for Assembly Bill 132?
Chair, there are no other callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and invite the bill sponsor to the table again for closing remarks. Please remember to state your name for the record.
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Thank you for having the conversation with me today. Clearly, this is a work in progress, and we do plan to keep working on it. Again, this is enabling language. It's just trying to make sure that local agencies are able to get the data that they need in case they do want to have programs and they do want to start something to be able to work in their communities. But we will continue to work on this, and we will make sure and get some language to you soon so that the committee will have a chance to review that language and take its time with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us again today. We appreciate you being in Health and Human Services with us. I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 132. We look forward to hearing those amendments. I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing for Assembly Bill 136, which requires certain facilities to be licensed as child care institutions. Our own Assemblywoman Thomas is going to be helping with this presentation. Please remember to state your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And good afternoon, Chair Peters and Vice Chair Ornlicker and committee members. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Claire Thomas, representing Assembly District 17, and I'm introducing Assembly Bill 136, of which Clark County submitted this request to the Joint Committee proposing to update Nevada statutes to align with guidance from the Federal Children's Bureau with HHS on implementation of the 2018 Families First Prevention Services Act, a broad federal policy bill that shifted the model for foster care to focus more on prevention services and evidence-based trauma-informed care. The Federal Families First Act primary goals were to build community capacity and to reduce the unnecessary use of congregate group care. In furtherance of that goal, congregate care, Families First defined a program known as Qualified Residential Treatment Program, or QRTP. You will see more discussion of this model from slides 5 through 8 from the state's presentation to the Joint Committee in April. I have attached this here as the second attachment. I will now hand over to Joanna Jacobs from Clark County Government Affairs for further explanation of this bill.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Thomas, and good afternoon, Chair Peters and Vice Chair Ortlicker, members of the committee. This is Joanna Jacob on behalf of Clark County, and I will, Assemblywoman Thomas referenced the slides from the Joint Standing Committee on Healthcare. I'll make sure and submit those to the committee so you can see the state's presentation on this model. You don't have to go look it up. So I will let you know that we did indeed submit this bill to the Joint Interim Standing Committee over the summer. And we are really looking to implement in Nevada to come into compliance with the guidelines for the Families First Act referenced by Assemblywoman Thomas. The federal program guidance states that foster care group home models, meaning not a family setting, but a group home model, is no longer reimbursable under the federal funding stream 4E. Unless the home is a family-based setting, except under very, very limited circumstances, one of which is the QRTP model referenced by Assemblywoman Thomas. QRTP is really for kids who are under 18, and it requires an assessment of the child and a determination that that child cannot be served, their needs cannot be served in a less restrictive family-based setting. So it means that they need a little bit more support, usually for kids who might have serious emotional disturbance or other conditions that might require some additional support. It is supposed to be a less restrictive setting. It is a federal model that has come out, and really what we are trying to do in Clark County, and we worked with the state and with Washoe County on this over the interim, is to try and just set up the framework so that we can build this model in Clark County and then eventually bill the federal funding stream for this model. So I will tell you that this is why when you look at the bill in section 1, subsection 1, the federal guidance tells us that QRTPs, by federal definition, are child care institutions, and that they must be licensed by the state, meaning DHHS, as a child care institution. So what we're trying to do here simply is add to the definition of child care institution and incorporate the federal definition of child care institution. It sounds as clear as mud, I know, but this is really designed to allow us the flexibility to have the state license this model. And then it's designed to say if we want to move forward and implement this model, and we are working towards this in Clark County, that we will then be in place to try and bill federal funding for it, which is a real important thing that we've been trying to do for Clark County. I know you'll see a package of bills on child welfare this session to address some of the conditions that we've seen in Clark County. I will tell you that this is really a necessary level of care in Clark County. We have a large number of children at our shelter right now, Child Haven, and just this morning, and I hate to say this because she's hiding in the seats, but I will, if you have questions on this bill, I also have Jill Morano, who, congratulations to Jill, was just appointed director of our Department of Family Services for Clark County from assistant director, but she and I have worked very closely together on trying to figure out how we can build towards this model and what changes we needed to the statute. So I will tell you that's why we are adding the definition in section 1, subsection B, and we're defining it. There's a reference to a federal statute there, which is, and it says regardless of the number of children who receive care and shelter from the program. The reason for that, that federal citation is to the federal definition of child care institution under the Families First Act. That's the citation to how it's defined federally, and it says you can serve up to 25 children. Our Nevada statute, as you can see, previously said there were 16 or more kids. I will make it even more muddy, is that we would like to serve a smaller number of kids. So that's why we didn't want to say that a child care it says 16 or more children. We are working on a model where we have a smaller setting, and that's where we are going to align with the federal guidance, and that's why we felt the need to change the statute. We did work with the state on this, and over the interim, especially as they were getting ready for this session, and I know Ms. Finney is in the background here if there are any questions on that, but this was actually their preferred approach, as well as Washoe County's. I don't want to speak for them, but I can speak to the work that we did with those agencies, and we touched base with them before the hearing to make sure that we were all good, and I think that everybody is comfortable with this approach. It's enabling really for us to be able to move towards it if we want to, and that's the goal, so that we will be able to access that federal funding stream and also build a very necessary level of care that is needed in Clark County. I will tell you, I was going to talk about Child Haven today. As of today, we have 90 kids sitting in our shelter. There's probably about 40 of them that would be better served in this level of care. This is a interim mid-level of care that is a more appropriate setting for these kids, and we want to work towards providing that service in our community. And that is the goal of the bill. I hate to say it's as simple as that, but that's really, this is really going to allow us to work with the state and move towards accessing that federal funding, and that is our primary goal. I will hand it back over to Assemblywoman Thomas if she has any closing comments. I also will note that Ms. Morano is in Clark County if there are any questions. She's in Grant Sawyer, though not at the table yet, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
I think before we close, we would entertain questions.
Yes. Are there questions from the committee on this particular bill? Well, I'm studiously Googling that federal definition right now. You said that maybe the federal definition has a cap of like 25 kids, which is greater than the cap that we currently have in the state of Nevada. But the goal is to be able to provide the floor we have in Nevada. But the goal is to provide services to below that. So we're looking at kind of a duplicated effort between 16 and 25, and then below that 16, this definition would capture those facilities.
Thank you, Joanna Jacob, for the record. Thank you, Chair Peters, for that question. I actually have the definition, and so I'm going to read it to you so you know what we're talking about instead of having to Google the federal citation. So the definition is a private child care institution or a public child care institution which accommodates no more than 25 children, which is licensed by the state in which it is situated or has been approved by the agency of the state responsible for licensing for approval of institutions of this type as meeting the standards established for the licensing. So that's where you see that we have to be licensed as a child care institution up to 25 people. And it was designed to give us that flexibility. We went back and forth on how to put this in, and really it was the state's, I will tell you, in the discussion with the state and Washoe, it was easier for us to just create the extra category so we don't don't modify the definition for other types of childcare institutions in the state, and we are looking to a smaller setting because there are some issues with Medicaid billing also for things that are over 16 beds. I see that Jill has come to the table, so perhaps she'll also clarify this, because like I said, it is sometimes when you talk about child welfare regulations, we can make it very muddy, so I appreciate any effort that she can do to clarify that for you, Chair Peters, and I'll see if she has anything to add.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Chair Peters. Jill Marano for the record. That's Marano. And yes, I think our main goal in bringing this forward and not wanting to use the current definition is because the current definition requires that you have 16 beds in the child care institution. And while we have recognized the need for this qualified residential treatment program, which is really more of a group care setting, with a staffed, you'd have, like an 8-hour shift staff coming in and out of the home. That is never our preferred option for children. We prefer children to be in family-based settings. But we also recognize that sometimes children need more structure, more treatment intervention than can be provided in a traditional family care setting. However, if we have to go higher than that, we still want to try and maintain as much of that family-based setting as possible. So our vision or our goal for a qualified residential treatment program would be something like maybe a 6-bed program, but it would still be in a home, in a community, so that a child is still living in as normal of a placement as possible, where they're still going to their own school, they're still seeing the same people they normally would see, they're still going into the same stores, and they're still feeling like they're a part of the community. If we are restricted to that 16 beds or higher, it's creating more of an institutional feel. So we're trying to sort of balance the home setting and the residential treatment setting. I mean, this is sort of a middle ground between the two, which is why we want the flexibility of the lower number.
Thank you for the response. I have a couple questions from committee members. I'll start with Assemblywoman Newby.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you to my colleague for presenting this bill, and to Ms. Jacobs as well. Ms. Jacobs, I was really struck by something you said about 90 children at Child Haven right now. Can you give us an idea of what is currently happening with that population? What are the options for both the higher needs, residential sort of needs children, and on the way down as we step down into more community-based care?
Thank you for that question. Chair Peters, through you to Assemblywoman Newby. Thank you for that question. It's kind of I'm going to have a lot to say probably about this. I guess what I would say is what is happening and what has been happening, and Ms. Moreno can also beef me up if I leave anything out, but what has been happening, especially after the pandemic, our county manager, if you heard him speak, before in this body, he has talked about kind of the second wave that we've seen of the crisis that we've been in. And it's really as our community struggled to respond to COVID and we got back in running, we still found that parents, foster care parents, or even regular parents, because our system serves everybody, we're struggling to find community-based care. So some of what we've seen has been more kids coming into Child Haven, which Child Haven, for the committee members who don't know, is a shelter that we have, which has been a emergency shelter. If we have to go out, our very hardworking staff goes out, and if they see domestic violence or if there's an issue about safety of a child, we will take temporary custody of the child to keep them safe. And that is the purpose of that shelter. That shelter, though, is not set up to serve the needs of some of the kids who have also been coming into our system because of unmet mental health needs. We've also had some parents who have had to surrender their kids to the child welfare system, and that is the most heartbreaking part about it, because they can't find community-based care, and they know that our doors are open and that they might be able to find care there. This has been something that we've been working about when I referenced a
You'll see a package of bills and budget presentations this session. We've been working with the state, with the Legal Aid Society, and with many partners on trying to address this situation. And I think what we've seen, and Ms. Moreno, if I'm leaving anything out, I'll hand it to you, but what we've seen also is an increase in acuity of the children who are coming in. They have some more needs that we need to serve in these models, which is really, I think you heard, is the preferred model. Ms. Moreno said that we want to try and keep kids in the least restrictive setting, in the most appropriate setting, so that they can find the care that they need in the community at the time that they need it. And that's really the hardest thing that we've seen. Child Haven is always open, or our UMC ER also. We've seen a lot of, there's a lot of, we've had kids dropped off at our ER also for the same reason, and then they end up at Child Haven because there's nowhere else to go. We have been, we've been working with the state on trying to build services. We did work with the state on an interim package of ARPA funding to try and build out the community-based care. This is a piece of that as well, as we look towards the sustainability of that ARPA funding that we worked on over the interim. This is a piece where if we set up this model, then we can offset some of our costs with the 4E funding. And this is really, it's the right thing to do, most as the preferred model under the federal act, and then also so we can work towards that sustainability. And I don't know, Ms. Moreno, if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs and Chair Peters. I don't really have anything else to add other than, I guess I would say that the addition of a QRTP adds in an additional level of placement services that we can offer, and I think it's one piece of the solution to the problem of 90 kids being in a congregate care shelter today. I think there's a variety of other pieces, but we do estimate, like Ms. Jacobs said, probably about 40 of those 90 children are there because we're missing that interim level of care. I think there are some children there that are there because there's a shortage of regular foster homes. There's some children that are there because there's a shortage of treatment level foster homes. There's some children there because they're a part of a large sibling group and we just don't have homes that are big enough for them. And then there's some children that are there because maybe on the developmental services side of the house, we don't have resources for that population either. So it's a complex problem with probably at least 7 or 8 solutions, and I think this is one of them.
Thank you for that response. We have another question from Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question focuses around Section 1A under definition. It seems to be pretty broad, and I'm just wondering about providing developmental guidance. When we look at unintended consequences, I'm looking at the Nevada National Guard's Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy, which is an academy for at-risk youth in Carlin. And they provide services such as life coping skills, health and hygiene, education, all that. Looking at that, and in the broadest sense, it would almost seem that this school would apply. This definition would apply to this school, and I'm just wondering if that was your intent. I mean, they've got more than 16 kids, but less than 100 or whatever the cutoff is. But I can't see them having to register as a facility.
I'm going to also just mention we do not have legal staff in the room right now, so if this becomes a legal question, we'll have to defer to staff in a follow-up question. But please, if you have a response, go ahead.
I'll try. Joanna Jacob for the record. Thank you for that question, Assemblyman Gray. And I was actually going to maybe see if the state would like to address that question also, because these are licensing types that you can choose to do. So this is not our intent to make anybody get licensed as a child care institution. This is actually something, a child care institution right now is like a daycare facilities get licensed this way through the state. And that's just how the state oversees those certain type of facilities. And so I don't think the intent would be to cover the school that you referenced or anything like that. It's really the regulatory stamp under 432A, and Ms. Finney can maybe speak to this, is they have a regulatory oversight over certain types of facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Finney. Please state your name for the record. We look forward to your reply.
Cody Finney for the record. Deputy Administrator for the Division of Public and Behavioral Health Regulatory and Planning Section. If I remember where this started, Assemblyman Gray, to your question through you, Chair Peters. The Division of Healthcare, or the Bureau of Healthcare Finance, nope. I've worked too many places in 25 years, forgive me. The Bureau of Healthcare Quality and Compliance licenses child care facilities, and we have a couple of mechanisms to do that. They have historically fallen under the child care licensing program, which will continue should all the bills that we have proposed pass this session, to license daycare and activity programs, child care programs. Child care institutions will continue to be licensed by the Bureau of Healthcare Quality and Compliance. And so generally the way we do that is that if a program meets the criteria in the definition, then they would need to be licensed by us in order to continue their programming. I have not reviewed the program that you're talking about with my staff to determine whether this criteria would be met. In general, the purpose of our licensure is to ensure that there's a basic level of quality and safety ensured to the children who are receiving those services. I'd be happy to review that particular program. There are also oversights for schools, and that is separate. So does that answer your question?
Not really, but we can talk more about it later. Just kind of, like I said, it's kind of, developmental guidance, provides developmental guidance. That's a very, very broad term. I mean, that could apply to almost any institution where the kids don't return home every night. And these kids out at the academy, and it's administered by the National Guard. Your intent, I don't think is to make them register, or get licensed, but looking at it.
If Cody Finney, for the record, if I might just add on, so it's not that any one criteria of the definition would cover them. They'd have to meet the full definition. So, but absolutely happy to talk with you more about that particular program.
Then, Madam Chair, if I may, that may require a change then here, because it doesn't say and, it says or. So it's either 1A or B in the follow-on.
I think that this is a legal question that we have to go back to our staff on and check on. It might be the section of NRS that's causing the confusion, a variety of potential issues that we're just not seeing the entirety of this chapter in front of us when you're just looking at the bill language. So I'm going to ask that staff follow up with legal and follow up with you on the response to that and share that with the committee. Thank you, Ms. Finney, for the responses. Really appreciate it. Are there other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move into testimony. I'm going to open support testimony on Assembly Bill 136. Where am I on? 136. Please state your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Greg Esposito, representing the Nevada CASA Association. I'm a CASA down in Clark County. If you're not familiar with the program, please grab me in the hallway. I'd love to explain what we do to you. I can't stress enough how important more facilities in our metropolises are. I've seen firsthand where these kids are coming from, where these kids are at. If you think back to your teenage years, how much you valued your space, how much you needed your space to grow, to develop, to process things. Now imagine that there are 5 or 6 other young people in the same facility as you. You don't have your space, and you don't have your solitude, and you don't have time to process. That just compounds whatever issues you're going through. And trust me, if you're in the system, you're going through the roughest time of your life. And so expanding the availability of facilities, expanding the quality of care for these kids who need it the most right now is critical. And so I truly hope you support this bill, and I welcome any questions either now or later as to the importance of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City who would like to provide support testimony for Assembly Bill 136? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to provide support testimony for Assembly Bill 136? All right, I'll ask BPS to check the public line for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 136.
Chair, there are no callers at this time to testify.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in Carson City who would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 136? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 136? Seeing none, BPS, is there anyone on the public line to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 136?
Chair, there are no callers at this time to testify.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to neutral testimony. Is there anyone in Carson City who would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 136? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 136? Seeing none, BPS, is there anyone on the public line that would like to testify neutral on Assembly Bill 136?
Chair, there are no callers to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. I would invite this bill's sponsor and co-presenter for last remarks if you would like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for the record, Assemblywoman Clara Thomas, representing Assembly District 17. In closing, this bill will provide the path forward for our child welfare agencies to implement this model in the state and to access federal funding for these critical services.
So, and I just wanted to say for the record, Chair Peters, I want to say thank you to Assemblywoman Thomas to help us. This was a joint interim healthcare committee bill. So she stepped forward on this journey with us with Clark County. So we are always appreciative of those efforts. And as she said, this is about not only those goals, but also to make sure that we have the right service array at the lower level, the lowest level possible, with the least restrictive level that we can do for these kids. And that is our goal with this bill. So we appreciate your time and attention to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Assemblywoman Thomas. We really appreciate you presenting this bill on behalf of the interim committee. We're going to go ahead and close out the hearing on Assembly Bill 136. And the last thing on our agenda today is public comment. And I've spread all of my notes out everywhere, so I'm going to have to wing this because I don't know where my... Sorry, you guys. All right. Public comment. We can go ahead and present public comment in a variety of ways, in person, via email or snail mail and fax. Today we are going to be taking public comment in person and via phone. I'm going to go ahead and open public comment in Carson City. Is there anybody in Carson City who would like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing hardly anyone in the room, we're going to go ahead and move to Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing no one approach the desk, I'll go ahead and ask BPS to check the public comment line for those who would like to provide public comment today.
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers to participate at this time.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments? Oh, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Are there any comments or last moment items from the committee? Seeing none, that concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting will be Friday, March 3rd at 1:30 p.m. Hell or high water. Or heavy snow. The meeting is adjourned.